Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. And before we get started with the main topic of conversation this week, I just wanted to give you a bit of background to the video that you're about to see running in, well, the background. It's the very first video I ever uploaded to YouTube. This is Type 59 Action, uploaded to YouTube in June 2012. This is what World of Tanks looked like 7 years ago, and right after this I'm going to be running a benchmark video captured using the new RT Encore ray tracing demo software for the upcoming ray tracing technology that they're going to put into the World of Tanks graphic engine. I thought it might be amusing to see what the game used to look like and what it's about to look like, just by way of comparison. You're probably going to be seeing some very strange looking tanks. There are several tanks driving around that might look like Panthers, but believe it or not, they're actually Panzer IVs. They just happen to have Panther turrets. Also, try not to be too alarmed if you're looking at the matchmaking and the team lists on each side of the screen. Yes, those are Tier 5 tank destroyers. In this Tier 8 battle, that's what the matchmaking was like back then. You may even recognise the map that we're playing on. This is the Arctic map, obviously. Well, it's not that obvious. I mean, it is kind of recognisable, but holy shit, things have changed. So anyway, this is basically what's going to be running in the background, at least at first, while we crack on with the meat and bones of this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. And the first thing that I really do need to talk about and get out of the way is the whole NordVPN issue. Now, this episode of Mingles with Jingles is not sponsored by NordVPN, but I am going to be talking about the data breach that they suffered and the response to it at quite some length because, well, a couple of weeks ago I did do a NordVPN-sponsored episode of Mingles with Jingles, and there's probably a lot of you out there who subscribe to their service as a direct result of that. So I do feel kind of responsible, and I do feel that I need to address this issue. However, I also understand that there are going to be a lot of you out there who don't care, are not affected by this issue, and really don't want to hear about NordVPN again. I completely understand that, and if that is the case, then go ahead and skip to around about the 17-minute mark in this video. For those of you who are staying to hear what I have to say, here it is. Holy shit, does my timing suck or what? So, a couple of weeks ago, I was very happy to have an episode of Mingles with Jingles sponsored by NordVPN. I've been using them for about a month now. I'm very happy with the service. But as luck would have it, around about a week after my NordVPN sponsored episode of Mingles with Jingles went up, TechCrunch did some very impressive investigative journalism that one of the thousands of servers that Nord rents from server farms all around the world, for about a month, around March of 2018, was vulnerable to remote access because the data center that the server was rented from had a remote management tool that a hacker could use to exploit the server and gain management access from remotely, because that's what remote management tools are for. Now, why this remote management tool was left on the server isn't really the issue. When asked to comment by TechCrunch, Nord said that they had no idea when they took over the server that this remote management access tool was in place, although in a subsequent statement a couple of days later by the server farm, who rented the server to Nord, they counterclaimed that Nord were aware that the remote management access tool was in place. But there's a lot of he said, she said, finger pointing going on. I'm kind of inclined to believe Nord here, because if you were running a virtual private network and you'd rented a server from somebody and they told you, oh, by the way, this server can be accessed remotely, you might have a few things to say, like, can you not? On the other hand, if you were running a data center and selling or renting what are supposed to be secure servers to people, and then it turned out that you'd accidentally left a remote access management tool on one of those servers for a month, I can see why it might be in your best interest to comprehensively deny it. But it doesn't really matter. Really doesn't matter. This is not the actual issue. Or at least it's not really the issue for me. And I'm going to do my best to explain why. So, the consequences of this intrusion... Oh, and nobody's trying to claim that there wasn't an intrusion. There definitely was. This server was definitely breached in the 1 month window of vulnerability caused by whoever allowing this remote access management tool to remain on the server. And whoever it was who hacked that server managed to get their hands on the server's encryption key. And that encryption key didn't expire until October 2018, so that's a 7-month window of opportunity when whoever had hacked this single server in Finland and gotten their hands on this encryption key could have used it to set up fake NordVPN servers, which would be capable, if you connected to them, of decrypting all of your internet traffic. Now, it's important to remember, however, that this isn't going to happen unless you specifically choose to connect to one of these fake NordVPN servers. When your computer boots up and the Nord app flashes up, assuming you have it installed, most people just hit the quick connect button. Most people don't actually select one of the specific thousands of servers that they have. And the app itself hasn't been compromised. These fake servers aren't on Nord's network, so hitting the quick connect button is never going to connect you to one of these theoretical fake NordVPN servers. You would have to actually click a link somewhere in order to connect to one of these theoretical fake NordVPN servers. And I kind of can't help but think that most people who have gone to the trouble of signing themselves up to a virtual private network in the first place are not the kind of people who are dumb enough to just click on random links around the internet. However, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And you also have to bear in mind that anybody who is internet savvy enough to get access to the server in the first place and steal the encryption key and set up their own fake NordVPN servers is almost certainly going to know how to send out a spoof email that looks like it comes from NordVPN, for example, and we're just speculating here, saying, hey, as a valued NordVPN customer, we want you to be among the first to know that we've just set up a new dedicated super fast server farm. Click here to connect. I mean, it's not completely implausible. It might have happened. So the probability is that not a lot of people were actually affected by this, but it's impossible to say that nobody was affected by this. In fact, the probability that somebody was in fact affected by this and had their data compromised is almost certainly a number greater than 0. But again, this isn't really the issue as I see it. The issue wasn't that Nord got hacked. Everybody gets hacked. Right? Nobody's immune to it. Microsoft's been hacked. Google's been hacked. Everybody gets hacked. It's just a fact of life. In fact, during this time period, Nord wasn't the only VPN who got hacked. There were at least 2 others who have confirmed that they have suffered similar attacks. The issue for me is that Nord didn't come clean about it until they were forced to come clean about it by TechCrunch posting the news and asking for a comment from them. So basically, Nord just kept quiet about the whole thing until, well, it was too late and they had to say something because the news was already out there. It had been broken by TechCrunch. So there are 2 different ways that you can look at this. You can take the cynical view, and I often take the cynical view, and I'm usually not wrong. You could say, well, isn't it just a little bit suspicious that Nord didn't release any kind of statement on this thing until the genie was well and truly out of the bottle, TechCrunch had broke the news, and it had been confirmed that Nord had in fact been hacked. Doesn't that sound like they were just kind of sitting on the problem? Well, sitting on the problem isn't really the correct phrase. I mean, nobody's suggesting that Nord haven't done anything about this vulnerability. But isn't it suspicious that they didn't announce anything about this vulnerability until the genie was well and truly out of the bottle and TechCrunch had effectively announced it for them, at which point they had to make a comment and confirm that they had been breached? Because that does sound like the actions of a company who realise that something's gone wrong, but hey, nobody knows about it, so let's fix the issue and then, sweep the evidence under the carpet and hope nobody finds out. Oh, crap, somebody found out. Well, now we have to make a statement. But the thing is, no matter which way you try to spin it, if you only make a statement once you've been found out, you're going to look bad. So that's the cynical way of looking at it. And for all I know, that may in fact be exactly what happened. I don't know, and neither do you. But it's not the only way of looking at it, because what also may have transpired, and again, I don't know, and neither do any of you, but what may have also happened, and also fits the facts that we're aware of, is that after fixing the immediate issue, this one compromised server, after basically cutting that off from the rest of their network and removing that remote access management tool, you don't just stop there. Because if one server's been compromised in this fashion, you need to know that none of your other servers have been compromised in that fashion. So you have to check every one of your thousands of servers. And then you also have to check that there aren't any additional security complications or vulnerabilities that could have been exploited by somebody getting access to that one isolated server in the first place. You have to check your entire infrastructure, all of your protocols. You basically, I hope, do a full security audit. And there may very well be other issues that you weren't aware of that turn up as a result of that security audit, and then they have to be addressed as well. And when you're in the process of doing that, do you announce that you were vulnerable? Do you tell the world, hey, our back door just got kicked in, and the lock on the back door is broken? We're in the process of finding a new lock, but at the moment the back door is still open. No, of course you don't. You don't announce until you've made sure that it can't happen again. So it may very well be that Nord were in the process of making sure that it couldn't happen again when TechCrunch broke the news and forced them to make a comment. And while the cynical old bastard inside me wants to believe that they just hoped the whole thing would go away and nobody would ever find out about it, but it's equally possible that Nord were in the process of reviewing, vetting, upgrading, whatever, their security features as a result of this breach. Didn't want to announce anything publicly, because you don't announce that your back door is wide open until you've changed the locks, but were effectively outed by TechCrunch and were forced to make a public statement in response. Now, whether you believe option 1 or option 2 depends entirely on how cynical you're feeling at any given moment. But as a Nord customer, here's what I want to know. I mean, I don't really care that Nord got hacked, right? Everybody gets hacked. The biggest tech companies on the planet have been hacked and will be hacked. Hackers exist, therefore companies get hacked. That's just the way it is. I'm more concerned about what Nord plan to do to update their security features, and, perhaps more importantly, how transparent they're going to be about it. Because this whole incident is suspected to have happened on or about March the 5th, 2018. 15 days later, the data center removed the vulnerable account, at which point the encryption keys had already been stolen, and they didn't expire until October of 2018. And it wasn't until the 13th of April 2019, when Nord began an internal audit, that they realized something had happened. But it wasn't until 6 months later, when TechCrunch broke the story, that the world realized Nord had been hacked. That's a 6-month period when Nord were doing whatever the hell they were doing to make sure something like this didn't happen again, when nobody knew it was going on. And okay, yeah, I get it. When you're fixing the locks on your back door, you don't announce to the world that your back door is open. Fine. But I'm a NordVPN customer. I am not a TechCrunch customer. And I mean, TechCrunch are great, they do some fantastic work. But if there are any issues with my virtual private network, I'd like to hear about it from my virtual private network, not from a third-party tech website. So transparency is the big issue here. I want to know what Nord are doing, and as it happens, 2 days ago, on the 26th of October, they updated their security blog with exactly that information. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the details, because I've already been going on about this for far too long, and this is not a sponsored video for NordVPN, okay? So I'm just going to read you the bullet points. Number 1, partnership with a top cybersecurity and penetration test consulting firm. Number 2, they're instituting a bug bounty program. Okay, going into slightly more detail there, they're basically challenging people to try to hack their network and paying them bounties if they successfully manage to do so. Number 3, infrastructure security audit. Number 4, vendor security assessment and higher security standards. I can't help but feel that if they'd done proper vendor security assessments in the first place, none of this would have happened, but hey, whatever. Better late than never, I suppose. And 5, diskless servers. Now, if you don't know what any of that means, and you care enough to find out, there's a link down below in the video description to Nord's security blog where they explain what exactly each of those 5 points are. And that's really, well, it's not all that I'm asking for out of a VPN provider. If I'm paying for a virtual private network, and I have been very happy with the service provided by Nord, but I want that virtual private network to be exactly what it says on the tin, with the emphasis on the word private. And if there's anything that I need to be aware of with regards to any kind of security, vulnerability, data breach, or whatever, and how the virtual private network provider is going to address any of these issues, I want to know about it from them, not from some third-party tech website. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful to TechCrunch for bringing this information to my attention, and also to you lot who sent me plenty of emails also bringing this to my attention. But I'm kind of pissed off that I had to hear about it from TechCrunch in the first place. So it's great that Nord have now published a follow-up statement explaining their side of the story since the TechCrunch article and their initial comment. It's great that they've now published a security blog detailing exactly what it is that they're going to do security-wise moving forward. That's all great, and I'm not trying to downplay it. I mean, you know, it's obviously stuff that needs to be done. But I'm just glad that I'm hearing about it from them and not from TechCrunch, because that's possibly the single most important thing when it comes to online privacy and security. If there's a breach, be honest about it, be open about it, and be transparent about what was done and what you plan to do. Because if you're in the online privacy market, what you're effectively selling is trust. And if you're not open and honest and transparent, how can you expect your customers to trust you? So if you are a Nord customer, please do check those 2 links down below in the video description. The first is Nord's statement published after the TechCrunch article as to what actually happened, their side of the story, and the second is what they plan to do about it. And if, having checked out both of those links, you are satisfied that Nord are worthy of your trust, great. And if not, well, it is your money. Vote with your wallet. I realise this episode is starting to turn into what looks like yet another NordVPN sponsored video. I assure you it is not. I'm not seeing a penny from NordVPN for this. But there are probably a lot of you out there who took on a Nord's subscription based purely on my recommendation, and I do feel kind of responsible. So I just felt that you deserve to be aware of all of the information. But that's enough of that shit. Now, it's time to move on to something a lot more amusing and interesting. Who wants to hear the continuing tale of the ongoing dumpster fire that is Fallout 76? Just when you think that there is nothing else that could possibly have gone wrong with Fallout 76, just when you think that we finally plumbed the depths to which Bethesda will stoop, Todd Howard shouts, "Hold my beer!" and things just get worse. You wouldn't have believed it was possible, but hey, you know, the evidence speaks for itself. What are you talking about, Jingles? Well, in the space of just 1 week, Fallout 76 has managed to douse itself in 3 additional sources of internet dumpster fire fuel. First and foremost, there's what's being referred to as the Fallout First subscription service. Yes, you heard that right. Fallout 76 players, both of them, are now being given the opportunity to spend $100 a year just to get the kind of features that everybody was asking for in the game at launch. Wait. What kind of features are you talking about here? Non-player characters? Quests that actually work? A believable world to play in? No. Those are all of the things that Bethesda stripped out of Fallout 4 to repackage and sell to you as Fallout 76. Right. You know, all of the things that made Fallout 4 interesting and enjoyable and pleasurable to play. And the lack of which is one of the many things that makes Fallout 76 such a massive ball ache to play. But no, those were also, by the way, the sort of things that Bethesda had promised to put into the game this year in 2019, but which instead have now all been either cancelled or delayed until 2020, while they work on shoehorning this Fallout First $100 a year subscription service into the game. Well, okay, so what are we actually getting with this Fallout First thing? Well, your wallet is getting $100 a year lighter, and in return for that, you're getting all kinds of things that basically everybody expected to be in the game at launch. Things like the ability to play on your own private world, a scrap box for unlimited junk storage, a survival tent that creates a new placeable fast travel point with a stash, sleeping bag. You're also getting 1,650 atoms per month to use in the premium shop, the Fallout New Vegas Ranger armor outfit, and various different exclusive to Fallout First subscribers icons and emotes. Now, I am not trying to tell you that that is not worth $100 a year. That's only something that you can decide for yourself. What I am telling you is that it's definitely not worth $100 a year unless it all works as advertised. And it wouldn't be Fallout 76 if it wasn't working as advertised. So what have Bethesda managed to fuck up now? Okay, the private worlds, they're not quite as private as Bethesda would have you believe. There were numerous instances of people creating a private world to play on, only to find evidence that somebody had been there before. Dead NPCs, loot that was missing, things like that. And that would have probably been bad enough by itself if it wasn't also for the fact that these new private worlds, they were not invitation only. Anybody on your friends list could join this allegedly private server, whether you wanted them to or not. So it's kind of ironic that I spent the first half of this video talking about privacy. And here we are, still talking about privacy, or the complete and total lack of it, because Bethesda doesn't seem to understand what a private world actually is. But that's not all. Oh, if only that was all. Let's talk about the scrap boxes for unlimited stowage of junk. While it is technically true that if you have the Fallout First subscription, you do get a scrap box that is theoretically capable of holding unlimited amounts of junk items. And the reason I say theoretically capable of holding unlimited amounts of junk is that a lot of Fallout First players have found that when they put things into their scrap box, it doesn't come out again. I shouldn't be laughing, except it's funny. These scrap boxes have basically been eating all of the junk, the extremely valuable junk that people have been putting into it. So that's highly comical. Well, you know, it's certainly not funny if you've given Bethesda an additional $100 over however much you paid for the full price game in the first place, and it's now actively destroying your stuff. I mean, I'm sorry. But at this point, who would expect anything else of Bethesda? Who would expect anything else of Fallout 76 at this point? Well, I did say that there were 3 additional sources of internet dumpster fire fuel, and so far I've only mentioned 2 of them. The third isn't technically anything that Bethesda or Fallout 76 itself has done. Rather, it relates to something that they haven't done, and somebody else has decided to do for them. And this time it's not just the internet who paid attention. It's not just Rock Paper Shotgun, IGN and PC Gamer who were reporting on it. This time it's the mainstream news, the BBC. You see, one of the other things that Bethesda didn't bother to do when they announced the news of the Fallout First subscription service, along with, you know, making sure that private worlds were actually private, and that scrap boxes didn't actually destroy everything that you put into them, but one of the other things that they didn't do was register the Fallout First domain name. And so somebody else did. And now, if you type falloutfirst.com into the URL bar of your browser of choice, you will find yourself at the Fallout Fuck You First website. It was only a matter of time. Let me read you a selection from their webpage. Ever since Fallout 76 launched, we have consistently done nothing to improve and evolve the experience based on your shitty feedback. That's why we're excited to launch Fallout Fuck You First, a premium ass-pounding membership that offers something dumbass players have been asking for since before launch. Private worlds for you and select friends, so we decided to put it behind a paywall. The thing is, this is what the Fallout 76 website should be like if they were actually being honest. Oh, Bethesda, where did it all go so horribly, horribly wrong? I mean, you used to be a respected developer and publisher. There was a time when you could quite literally do no wrong. Where did it all go wrong? Was it when you started charging people to sell their mods for Fallout 4? Was that where the rot set in? I mean, it's gotten to the stage now where you've practically become a meme of yourself. I mean, if ever I'm sitting down to do an episode of Mingles with Jingles and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it's been a quiet week, what am I going to talk about? All I have to do is just Google Fallout 76. And there's guaranteed to be something new, humiliating and hilarious for me to talk about. You know, I think Fallout 76 and Bethesda should be given an award for services to games journalism, because as long as they exist, as long as this shitty, bug-ridden, broken, feature-free game continues to exist, and as long as Bethesda continue trying to make money out of it, games journalists the world over have free lunch tickets. Because Fallout 76 is always going to give them something to write about. And for that, we should all be grateful. So anyway, Fallout 76 continues to burn merrily, and no, I haven't been playing it. But what I have been playing, it has actually been a pretty good week. There's been a number of games I've purchased on Steam, and of course, this was also the week that Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out. Actually, let's talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare first. I haven't actually had that much opportunity to play it, because it came out on Friday, and Friday I was at London Comic Con. And I didn't actually get to play it until Saturday night, so I haven't actually spent that much time playing the campaign. Nevertheless, I do feel that based on what I've experienced so far, I am in a position to say a few certain things about it. First of all, I am very grateful that they have actually remembered to put a single-player campaign story mode into the game in the first place, because, well, they didn't last time, did they? And it is enjoyable. I don't want to say whether it's bad or good, and I'm certainly not going to go into massive spoilers for those of you who have not yet played it. Instead, I'm just going to be making some general observations. First, let's talk about the pacing. It is very, very good. They've always had a knack of splitting up the action. So it's not like the last hour and a half of Aliens, where it's just a constant adrenaline rush. Action non-stop all the way through. They pace it very, very well. You've got exactly those kind of scenarios within the story, and then after that you'll be treated to a stealth mission, and they always do try to do something new. Interspersed amongst all of the stealth missions and the non-stop action missions, you'll, for example, well, there's one particular level where you play as a child and you're basically unarmed. And that's not something they've ever done before, and it's actually it's quite an interesting level. There's another level where, again, without wanting to give away too many spoilers, you're not actually directly controlling the action at all. You're instead communicating to somebody over a cell phone and guiding them around using surveillance cameras so that they can get out of the situation that they're in without running into any of the terrorists that are running through the building. So they do try new things, and generally speaking, it works very well. It's not perfect, there are issues. I've only run into one bug in one of the levels, although it was a bit of a game breaker and meant that I had to reload a save and basically start again, but I didn't have to go back too far, so it wasn't, a complete deal breaker. Basically, there's a level where you're part of an SAS team who are infiltrating a London townhouse that's suspected to house a terrorist cell. And at one point, you're moving through the house in the dark using your night vision, and on the other side of one of the doors there are a bunch of terrorists, and you know that there are a bunch of terrorists in there because one of them fires a shotgun through the door and wounds one of your teammates, at which point Captain Price tells you to breach and clear the room, but the door won't open. For some reason it just got jammed. It would open a couple of inches, but not enough for me to push the door open. I couldn't kick it in from the outside. I was able to fire through the door and kill everybody inside the room. Basically blew every panel of the door out, so that I was just looking at the door frame, but I still couldn't get into the room, and Price still kept shouting at me to get in there and clear the room, even though it had been cleared from the outside, but I couldn't continue from that point until I physically moved into the room. So, like I said, it's not 100% bug-free, but also not a complete deal breaker. You just have to go back a couple of minutes to an earlier save. As far as the actual plot and the story is concerned, I tend to not expect great things from my computer games, regardless of who the developer is, and therefore I'm always pleasantly surprised when the story and the characters and the scripting is above average. Now that can come back and bite a developer on the arse when they do produce something that does have a very good story, a very good script, and memorable characters. Games like, for example, Mass Effect 1 and 2, which were both amazing. The problem there for BioWare, of course, was that when you consistently set the bar as high as that, it's very easy to fail to achieve the same high standards. Mass Effect 3 was fantastic, right up until the last 15 minutes. Mass Effect Andromeda was a train wreck, and the less said about Anthem the better. At the same time, you have to recognise just how ridiculously difficult it is for a developer not just to produce an excellent game in the first place, but to consistently follow that up with excellent game after excellent game. In fact, if you pressed me on the subject, I can only really, off the top of my head, think of one game developer who's consistently managed to produce good games. Irrational Games. I mean, I'm not saying they're the only developer out there who've never produced a turkey, but they're the only one I can think of. I mean, 1999 they came out with the absolutely amazing System Shock 2. They followed that up with the well-received Freedom Force. Then there was SWAT 4, and then of course there was Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite. As far as I can remember, they've never put a foot wrong. But it's so incredibly rare for a developer to have that kind of track record, so we shouldn't be at all surprised if a developer finds it difficult to achieve the highs of a previous title. And well, just look at the original Modern Warfare. It's a masterpiece. I mean, not everybody enjoyed the multiplayer, but the single-player campaign was an absolute masterpiece. They've done their best with Call of Duty Modern Warfare. They've definitely tried. But I think it's probably fair to say that the plot of this new single-player story campaign has all the sophistication of a Saturday morning cartoon. I'm not saying it's unenjoyable. I'm just saying Tom Clancy's estate doesn't have anything to worry about. Here are a few of the things that I learned from playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Number 1. All Russian soldiers are war criminals. If Russia ever invades a country, they immediately enslave the population and start inflicting the kind of barbaric war crimes that you just wouldn't be able to imagine. In fact, you don't have to imagine, because Call of Duty Modern Warfare is only too keen to show you exactly the kind of stuff that Russian soldiers get up to whenever they invade a country. 2. If we invade a country and the people rise up against us, they're terrorists. Number 3. If Russia invades a country and the people rise up against them, they're freedom fighters, and the CIA should absolutely support them. 4. All Muslims are bad people, except for the Muslims that choose to kill Russians. They're the good Muslims, and we should definitely support them. And the 5th and final thing that I learnt from playing this game, and which became abundantly clear within half an hour of starting to play the game, is that Activision really don't give a shit if they don't sell a single copy of this game in Russia. At this point, and again, you know, I haven't finished playing it through yet, but I honestly would not be surprised if at some point during the course of the single-player campaign of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, we suddenly started teaming up with China to kick Russia's arse. Because that's what Activision Blizzard do lately, isn't it? They all bend over to take it up the arse from China. What on earth are you talking about, Jingles? Come on, it wasn't that long ago. I am, of course, referring to the Blizzard Hearthstone debacle when Blizzard banned a player for daring to express sympathy for the Hong Kong protesters. Yeah, you remember. It was only a couple of weeks ago. And of course, Blizzard Activision are in good company. They're not the only games developer who regularly bends over to take it up the arse from China. Gaijin, yes. Yes, War Thunder, you thought we'd forgotten, didn't you? War Thunder used to have Taiwanese vehicles. Not anymore. Well, that's not true. The vehicles are still there. It's just the Taiwanese flags that are gone. Suddenly, China is operating all of these modern and semi-modern American vehicles. Because obviously America is a well-known supplier of military hardware to China, isn't it? Well, no, it isn't. But it's a well-known supplier of military hardware to Taiwan. Oh, but we can't mention the name of a country that exists, otherwise China gets upset, and then we can't sell our game to the Chinese, and they are the biggest developing market on the planet. Oh yeah, we get it. We know why you're bending over to take it up the arse from China. It's all for the yen. I mean, obviously, it's money. We get it. But at least have the good grace to be embarrassed about it. Anyway, I'm going off topic again, aren't I? I know I do that. I'm sorry. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I'm not saying that Activision Blizzard are bending over to take it up the arse from China in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I'm just saying that they're a company who have been known to bend over and take it up the arse from China in the very recent past. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if that is in fact what happens in this game as well. Because, hey, they're setting a trend. Well, they're not setting a trend. Game developers, movie studios have been bending over to take it up the bum from China for years now. They're following a trend. And it's a pretty well established one at this point. However, having said all of that, despite the undeniable fact that large parts of the story of the single-player campaign of Call of Duty Modern Warfare is horribly offensive, particularly if you're Russian. And also the fact that most of the characters have all of the characterization that you'd expect of a Saturday morning cartoon character, with some exceptions. Okay, one exception, Captain Price. He is pretty good. And if they'd managed to fuck up Captain Price, I would not have forgiven them. But they did at least manage to get Captain Price right, and if they haven't managed to reach the very high standards set by the original Modern Warfare game, at least the pacing of the action sequences is absolutely spot on. And while I'm not saying I forgive them for the horribly offensive sections of the single player campaign, I am saying that how offended you're likely to be is going to depend entirely on how Russian or how Muslim you are. And since I'm neither, I do still enjoy actually playing the game while only feeling massively embarrassed rather than mortally offended and outraged. Speaking of mortally offended and outraged, and moving swiftly on to another subject, The Outer Worlds came out this weekend too, developed by the usually reliable Obsidian Entertainment, and touted as the spiritual successor to Fallout New Vegas, because Obsidian did Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout New Vegas was bloody amazing. By all accounts, The Outer Worlds is equally good, if not better. I quite literally haven't heard a bad thing said about it. Well, I've heard one bad thing said about it, but it's not really something I'm prepared to blame Obsidian for. I mean, technically, the piece of criticism that I'm about to level at the game is Obsidian's fault, but, well, let's just say they were pushed. So, what is it that you're talking about, Jingles? Cut to the chase. Stop stringing us along. Okay. The Outer Worlds is, by all accounts, an amazing game. But you can only play it if you have a console, or you're prepared to give money to the Epic Games Store. Yep, it's another Epic Games Store timed exclusive. Everybody was saying, hey, Jingles, The Outer Worlds is out this weekend. I thought, woohoo. I went to have a look on Steam. It said release date 2020. Hang on a minute. This is another one of those Epic Store exclusives, isn't it? Yes, it is. So, much like Borderlands 3, I had resigned myself to not being able to play the Outer Worlds for another 6 months. And then it occurred to me, hang on a minute. I can play this game right now without giving a penny to Epic. I've got a PlayStation. So I've ordered it, and by the time you see this episode of Mingles with Jingles, it should have arrived, and I'll be playing it. And fuck you, Epic. And you know what? I'm going to do the same with Borderlands 3 as well. I mean, I'll probably suck until I figure out how to play it on a controller, but why should I have to wait 6 months to a year to play something? Just so Epic can get a slice of the pie. No, fuck that. I've got a PlayStation. I'd prefer to play it on PC, but that decision has been taken out of my hands, hasn't it? So I guess I've got a pretty busy week ahead of me, really. I've got some cool and groovy new games to play, except, you know, on the PlayStation rather than on the PC, where they should be. Thanks, Epic. No, really, thanks. Until they arrive, I suppose I'd better get back to Call of Duty Modern Warfare and kill some more Russians, because if there's one thing I've learned from playing that game, they all deserve it one way or another. And that's it for this week, folks. Hope you've enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.